on my mic. Kathy, can you call roll, please?
Chairperson Kimbrough.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Bonkowski.
Here.
Member Bagwells. Here. Member Hastings. Member Penzel. Member Smolensky.
Here.
Member Zentino.
Thank you.
Ex officio Member Costa.
Here.
Quorum is present.
If I may, Mr. Zentino did indicate he wasn't going to be able to make it this evening. He's at the legislature.
That's the time to either be there or lose a lot in very few moments there, huh? So after we got a quorum, so next on the agenda is the chair may take some items on the agenda out of order. I wasn't going to do that. Is there anything that would change on the agenda tonight that you know of, Patrick? Nope. Okay, so we're fine there. 4, if there's any disclosures anybody needs to make on the board tonight for anything on the agenda.
I think you skipped 2 and 3.
Did I skip 2 and 3? I just moved the numbers around like I did last time. Oh, what's that? Roll call, public comment? Oh, okay. So I go to public comment on your number, huh? Okay, so next, is anybody in the public like to come to the podium and make any comments about anything on the agenda or not on the agenda? Seeing nobody, we can move forward then to, we got disclosures done, so approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization for April 12th, 2017 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, any discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. So we move into the public meeting section, 4A. 4, possible action to determine the selection of a Federal Transit Administration's FTA 5310 applications to be submitted for funding in the CAMPO planning area. Dirk.
Thanks, sir. This item is to select an applicant for the 5310 FTA program funds. This year, we received a portion of the funds. We received 7/12 of the funds, which is about $61,000. And the purpose of this funding is for transportation needs to address seniors and individuals with disabilities. So we received 2 applications, one from the RSVP program, and they're hoping to purchase a bus, and they're requesting $33,200. And then Carson City RTC for Jump Around Carson Paratransit is requesting $61,944, which is the entire amount for operating expenses. What's unique to this is that usually operating funds are at 50% match, and so for paratransit, this allows us to do a 20% match. Susan Haas with RSVP is in the audience, and I want to do one comment to that is that RSVP has received FTA funds in the past, and so they are capable of managing this FTA funding, which is very important. And Patrick's here with Jump Around Carson.
And I'll just add that the way this works is that the funds are designated to the CAMPO area, and the way that it works is that any recipient is subject to being a subrecipient of CAMPO as a designated recipient and grantee, which is different than the way the funds were previously managed. In the past, applicants such as RSVP and others could apply to the Nevada Department of Transportation and apply to be a subrecipient to the Nevada Department of Transportation, which is a different process, but now it's underneath CAMPO. So whomever receives any funding, whether it's $1 or however many dollars, they are subject to all requirements, and CAMPO is responsible for the performance of the subrecipients. Graham couldn't be with us this evening.
Dirk, any more?
No, that concludes our comments. We're all here and available for questions.
Questions?
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Patrick, what services overlap between the 2 applicants, the programs that they're proposing funding for?
Well, it's absolutely true that there are definitely can be clients that are served by both services. However, a public transit system like the Jack Transit System is just that. It's a public transit system. It's meant to serve the general population. It's not specifically focused on one type of service. And while we're very proud of what we do with the Jack Transit System, there are definitely needs for other services out there in the community that serve different, even if it may be the same clientele in some cases, different trip purposes and different trip needs that are out there. For example, the fire department provides a service under contract specifically to get people home from the hospital. And we're very happy that the fire department is doing that and providing that service, because there are a lot of complementary services in the community.
What effect will it have on the RTC budget if they don't receive all of the funds that they requested?
So the way this impacts, obviously this, if awarded, this would have a very positive impact on the Jack budget overseen by the Carson City RTC, because these would be number one, they would be additional funds, and it would also provide a better match. So if we use 5307 funds for operating expenses, we get a 50% match. If we receive 5310 funds, we get an 80% match. So it's very beneficial in that way because less local funding share is required, but it's also beneficial in other ways in that because we didn't use the 5307 funds for that operating service, they're available for other uses. They can be used to, it could be used to maintain buses, it could be used for other capital needs. For example, we are, one capital need is that the Jack system is going to be moving from one building to another, and the costs actually exceed the federal funds available. So we're actually substantially overmatching with local funds because there aren't sufficient 5307 funds available. So if this is received, it has direct and indirect benefits.
What's the delivery date of the next Jack bus?
Well, this money isn't actually, this one's actually.
No, I know, but we ordered a bus.
Yeah, we ordered a bus, it was about 2 or 3 months ago. Do you remember? It's probably about 4 months away from being completed and delivered.
And at that time, we'll be taking a bus out of service.
We had expected to do so. We may end up keeping a vehicle. There are certain state requirements that we found out about that we've had to specially outfit one of our vehicles to be appropriate for testing and training. We actually had to install another seat in the bus for the DMV tester. So we may keep that bus just for that purpose, for training and testing bus drivers. So we may not actually shrink the entire fleet.
Where I was going with this is that in the past, we have donated buses that we've taken out of service to different service organizations. And so I'm just wondering if that's a possibility with RSVP if we have a bus that's coming up.
Yeah, I don't know that the bus will be appropriate at that time, but of course we're always trying to replace buses as fast as we can. So you're absolutely correct. It does periodically come up, and we have given away buses to multiple different agencies.
Thank you.
Patrick, I thought maybe Brad was going to talk about this, but in Jack's bus fleet, there is life expectancy standards, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I don't know if you have this answer. Does RSVP buses have the same standards that the Jack buses do?
Well, it depends on there are absolutely standards, and the standards mostly apply to how long the vehicle is expected to last and when you could next use federal funds to replace that vehicle. And it really depends on the vehicle acquired. So, for example, the smallest vehicles in the city Jack fleet are only expected to last 5 to 7 years. The purple buses are at 7, and the new white buses that we have are expected to last 10 years. So how long the vehicle is expected to last depends on which vehicle is acquired. But yes, that absolutely applies.
And it does apply to RSVP too?
Yes, that would be correct.
Because looking at their inventory or fleet, you know, most of theirs are in fairly good shape, but one is listed as poor, and it's 16 years old.
I imagine it very well could be in poor shape at 16 years old.
Question?
Sure.
So my question goes more to, when reviewing the application, and it potentially could be that RSVP needs to answer this. When I look at both of them, so is RSVP's actually a replacement vehicle or expanded service? Because the application appeared to be expanded service, but reading the inventory, I got the impression, so I'm just looking, maybe it's both. Maybe they're going to replace a vehicle and expand the service. So maybe they could answer what the purpose of the van and the goal.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Hello. Yes, I'm Susan Haas, Executive Director and CEO of RSVP. Committee members, thank you for having us today. And yes, it's both. We got to a point where, because Carson City is a municipality now, we can no longer apply directly to NDOT for the resource of the 5310 vehicles. So we are able to apply for the rural areas through that resource, but now we have to go through CAMPO in order to attain. And we don't want a bus, we're looking for a van. And that's quite different, because a bus is not manageable for us because we utilize volunteers. And our fleet is aging. The newest one that we have in Carson City is 2010. So we're hoping to be able to expand the service in Carson to include working in partnership with the senior center. And we want to be able to provide clients access to the senior center for congregate meals and also for socialization, and additionally to let them know that there is a resource for those that want to go to the VA, who need to go shopping and access doctors throughout the community.
Sure, go ahead.
So then, one of my other questions, when I reviewed your application, you have to fundraise to get the match. So a concern is, what's going to happen if do you have the wherewithal to meet the match without fundraising?
No, but we do have a commitment from ADSD to help us with that match as to the level that they are capable of. They said up to 20%, which is the match, if they are able. So they kind of left the back door open for how their funding looks.
So what's
And-
that acronym for?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
ADS, what?
Oh, I'm sorry, Aging and Disability Services Division.
Okay.
State of Nevada has agreed to help us pay for the match, and as up to the level that they are able, up to 20%. So they left themselves a little wiggle room depending upon their funding. And then if not, we have other sources of funding, foundations that have helped us in the past that we could turn to and ask for help with the match. And we could do some local fundraising as well, just to let the community know this is what we need to help support the senior community, the elders.
Is there any questions for?
So Susan, what are your plans if the funding's not approved for you tonight? What's Plan B?
Plan B is to reassess what can we do to find the funding. It would be a big stretch between 20% or 5% or whatever we had to come up with. It would be tough. Our general operating funds are stretched pretty thin, and we're in the process of having a carnival this weekend to help build that up. But we don't have that in our budget right now to buy a new vehicle, to a new van. It would be really not
Any other
possible.
questions? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Any more questions of staff or a call for public?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I just want to be clearer in my mind on the RTC application, or the city application versus the RSVP application, to help me make an informed decision here. So are you saying that for the city application, it is also new money, or the opportunity to just do better matching, but it would not harm providing services by the JAC?
Well, no, it would, basically, the same services would be provided, but it is new money. Basically, we do have our basic operating money that we get through a program called 5307, but this would be new money. This would make a difference to the funding mix because, like, as I mentioned previously, this could be used to do the operating at 80%, which already right there is a savings, 80 instead of 50. But that means that all the money we would have either had to use is now available for projects that we're already not having the federal match on, like moving into another building or potentially another vehicle. There are definitely needs out there that are coming to us, and we are having a difficult time keeping our fleet moving. And while this doesn't directly benefit the fleet, it indirectly benefits the fleet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments from the public on this agenda matter? Seeing none, I bring it back to the commission. Any more comments, a motion? I have one question. Does that van for RSVP need to be handicapped for wheelchair access?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It does.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Are you ready to do something here? You're thinking?
I am too.
Well, I did the math here, so I go.
So just a general comment that it makes it a little difficult. One, we can leverage dollars and potentially do a greater activity within our own JAC system, but at the same time, I don't want to harm services in RSVP, but those appeared to be expanded services. So I think comparing them both, that seemed pretty even to me. One's to expand and do service and replace an old vehicle, because it was both. And one allows the city to leverage dollars better and more efficiently. My only concern is, I think they're pretty good fundraisers, but I still don't like the fact that they don't have their match in hand. And I hate to tie up dollars that don't have guaranteed matches, but they're both valuable, very valuable. So I don't know, it's just a discussion.
Well, and we're not talking about not having funds for RTC. We're talking about the difference between 28,000 and 61,000, 2,000.
Right.
Yeah, I don't feel like we've really been given enough information to, tip us one way or the other. I also would feel better if I had some assurance that RSVP had the match in hand. I guess the question would be, when would you have a commitment from the state or a foundation? How long would this money be tied up, and when would we know if you had to give it back or not?
Yeah.
Again, for the record, Susan Haas with RSVP. We do have you should have a letter in your packet from the state of Nevada stating that they would provide us with the match. And I think that because this service is a specialized service, it's escorted door-to-door transportation, which is different from the JAC service. And it is one of the highest priorities of the state to provide access to the goods and services so that people can maintain their independence. We feel quite confident that they will help us with this match, as evidenced by their letter, and because in the past they have done so.
So, Susan, though, my question was, first, the letter says that they support your efforts to obtain the grant. It doesn't say that they're actually going to give you money. Again, my question was, when will you know whether or not you'll have the match, which would then be the date that we would know whether those funds are coming back or you would be receiving those funds?
Well, we would request them as soon as you provided us with the allocation, the approval for the allocation. And in the past, the way that it's worked, when the vehicle was ready to be delivered, that's when we had to come up with the match. So this is new. I've never gone through the process working with CAMPO, but working with NDOT, when the vehicle was prepared and ready for delivery, that's when we had to come up with the match. And there was quite a bit of time in between when we were notified and then from the time that the vehicle was ready.
Right, and I understand that, and the situation, I believe, is the same here. You don't have to come up with the match until
Until we
vehicle.
actually
Well,
get
if
the
I may, I
vehicle.
think, I'm familiar with the way that Nevada Department of Transportation used to do this when they ran the program. They were actually using this type of fund statewide for rural areas, non-Washoe, non-Clark, and they would actually go out there and acquire the vehicles as a large, for example, they would take orders from lots of different counties, package them together, they would do all the acquisition, they would acquire the vehicles, follow all the rules, and then they basically would say to agencies like RSVP, okay, now give us the 20% and here's your vehicle. This is not like that at all.
Right.
Yeah, this is, if you get this, you need to go out and follow all the federal rules for procurement, follow everything, follow all of the reporting requirements, not like through NDOT, and basically pay for the entire vehicle and then seek reimbursement for the 80%. That's the difference.
Did you know that, Susan? You had to seek
No.
reimbursement, so you have to pay for the van then.
No, I did not know that.
Does that mean anything about what you're saying here tonight?
Well, it shifts things, yes. We would have to look at how we could come up with the funding. And that would require, that's a big purchase.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure.
Can I just clarify something? I know Dirk said this in his presentation and it's in the document, but just to reiterate, this is 7/12 of the money.
Right.
Because the federal funding was only funded through April 28th. With the omnibus bill that Congress passed, assuming that all goes well, we're going to be back in front of you in 2 months, doing this again for the other 5/12 of the money. So just to make sure that make sure that's very clear.
Right.
So then RSVP could have a chance to consider whether
Right.
they can upfront do a
Hopefully
purchase
this
order.
weekend, the sun's going to shine, really.
Right. So I like that idea. Then they could,
Because
I like that idea as
I
well.
like that
So
idea better. Give
we-
you time.
give us some
you're
time,
right.
and
Yeah,
we could
give you
pull it
time.
together. I feel very confident that we can do that.
Okay.
But if we had to write a check today, I'd have to really talk to Nick about that. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a little more comfort back here for a motion now, I think. Yeah. Okay, great, that's good.
I'll go ahead and try a motion here. I move to determine the 5310 funds in the amount of $61,944 will go to Carson City RTC. So that's the motion, and then just with the caveat that when the 5/12 of the money come in the future, then you could reapply at that time for your funding for your vehicle.
Is that part of the motion then?
No.
Okay, just, okay.
I'll
all right.
second the motion.
I got a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Well, I know that will create some excitement in your place for fundraising here pretty soon then, huh? Thank you. Number 2, 4B. 4B, for possible action to determine the selection of Carson City's RTC Federal Transit Administration FTA 5339 application to be submitted for funding in the CAMPO planning area. Dirk.
Thank you, sir. This item is very similar. The difference is that this item is titled 5339 FTA funding. And again, we have a portion of the funds. The amount for this is $54,813. And the purpose of this funding is for the purposes of capital purchases, or for, in RTC's cases, purchase of a bus, or to be put towards a bus. The local match for this is 15%. And this one should be easier because the only applicant was Carson City RTC.
Big difference.
So that concludes my comments. but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? See, it was much more simpler than the first one. Seeing no questions, does anybody from the public like to come forward to address this item on the agenda? Seeing none, move it back to the commission for a motion or comments.
I'll make a motion. I move to determine the selection of Carson City RTC's Federal Transit Administration 5339 application be submitted for funding in the Campo planning area.
I have a motion, second from Lori. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're at internal communications and admin matters. Future agenda items. Patrick?
I'll just mention a couple, both under the purview of Mr. Costa over there for NDOT. Two items. One, we have to make sure we have next month, which is the annual agreement. We call it the UPWP agreement. It's the funding, the one-year annual funding agreement for the Unified Planning Work Program for CAMPO. We need to make sure we have that at the June meeting, or else our money runs out on June 30th. And also, Kevin Very of Mark Costa's staff is our, what's the proper word? Is the representative from NDOT to work, liaison, thank you. Representative from NDOT working with us, and we look forward to, he's putting together something for a report to CAMPO, just a report on NDOT's dealings with the CAMPO area. So we look forward to that as well.
Any board comments? Start from the right. Any comment? Nope. Nope. Brad? No more comments? This is the last chance in the meeting for public comment. If there's anybody that would like to come forward and speak to the CAMPO tonight, now is the last chance. Seeing none, bring it back for an adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion carries. This meeting has been adjourned. Thank you. Well, in 10 minutes? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Come back as RTC.
All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission. Today is Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. We are in the Sierra Room at the Carson City Community Center. Kathy, can you call a roll call, please?
Chairperson Bonkowski. Here. Vice Chairperson Smolinski. Here. Commissioner Bagwell. Here. Commissioner Kimbrough. Here. Commissioner Zentino. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Kathy. The next item on the agenda is public comment, but I believe that we have a little presentation that we're going to do first.
Hello there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patrick Pittenger for the record, I'm standing over here. I am here to express our appreciation to somebody who's going to be leaving her employment that has helped the city for many years now. And if you don't mind coming up, Lisa Lushner. Okay. Everybody, if you don't know her, this is Lisa Lushner. She is a general manager for the Jack Transit System. She is an MV employee, MV Transportation, Inc., and she has been serving the city for about 14 years now, right, Lisa? Yes. And, when I got here in 2006, who was here? It was Lisa. She was the operations manager at the time. Started off as a driver, right? Mm-hmm. You were operations manager already by 2006 when I got here.
Yes, driver, dispatcher.
Yep, driver, dispatcher, and then operations manager. And then when the previous general manager departed, she took over as general manager. What year was that? Come on.
2009. 2008.
2008, there you go. So she has been the manager down at the Jack Operations Building for 9 years now and dealt with all sorts of fun things, right? Yes. Everything from the Nevada Fair to projects like the Roop Street project that went on for so long that she had drivers that got hired and trained and drove for months, and then when the regular route started up again, they didn't know what the regular route was. Right, Lisa?
Exactly.
Anything else stand out to you? No? All right. Well, I'll let you have a couple minutes for words here, but I have a nice plaque here. It says, in appreciation of Lisa Lushner for your 14 years of service to the Carson City community and the Jump Around Carson Transit System. She was here before it was Jack.
Yes.
And she's been wonderful to work with since I got here almost 11 years ago. And I really appreciate her, and I want to give you a couple minutes and another round of applause. Come on, say something.
All right.
And she's made it through 3 transit coordinators.
And I'm dying up here.
That's all right.
Well, thank you. I have to thank Patrick because when he came on, we were kind of scrambling, and he helped us get buses because that was a big issue. And so he made my job a lot easier than what we first started out with. And thank you, Carson City, for the bus system. It's a great thing. Previous background, I worked in disabled homes, the community, so it helps with independence. So to continue it, and that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Lisa. Patrick and Lisa, if you want to come up here, then you guys can have a chance to take some pictures.
Oh, absolutely. Come on. No. Here, give him the wrapper. Here, I want to do all. There you go. All right. Very nice. All right. Oh, thank you very much. And I will, as long as he's here. Yep. I got right there with the camera. That is Farrell Bonner, who is the current general manager and has been for, I don't know, a couple of years. Operations manager, but the point is that he will be the next general manager, and we're very pleased that he will be taking over that position, effective at the end of the month, June 1st, May 31st, somewhere in that time frame. So we do have a wonderful person here who's worked with the system for a couple of years and knows how everything works, so we're still in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, that's a great way to start our meeting off. Better than what we usually do. We're now moving on to item 2 on the agenda, which is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience tonight that has any comments for us on any item on the agenda or off the agenda? I see nobody walking up to the podium. So we will move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes. If the commissioners have had a chance to look at the minutes, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. It passes unanimously. We are on to item 4, public meeting items. Item 4A for information only. Traffic meeting update for the meeting held on Tuesday, April 18th, 2017. And who's taking this? Is that you, Patrick?
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
So this is just an informational update, but as, you know, per the direction we received previously from the RTC, we are now having quarterly meetings. That the previous meeting was held, we had one in January. As it follows April, the next one will be held in July. We covered a variety of topics with the traffic group, including updates on several projects. Won't go into, as we're going to have our own project update in a while. But we talked about different projects that we're currently working on during the current fiscal year and ones that we have for the next fiscal year. Talked about some other things that are impacting our road network, you know, on top of the other issues that we have as far as our inability to fully maintain our roads. We have had impacts, of course, from the recent weather. That doesn't, that's not the core problem of the situation, but it sure doesn't help. We talked about the South Carson Street Complete Streets Corridor Study and as well potential legislative impacts for the city as well. And I'll just mention there's make sure I get this right, SB 439 is a proposal to implement an RTC motor fuel tax. It actually would be on diesel, and there is not currently an RTC tax on diesel fuel in Carson City or anywhere outside of Clark and Washoe counties. And as I mentioned, the next meeting is in July. And I want to say that I really appreciate that we had a good turnout and we had a good discussion from the attendees, and actually a fine article in the paper regarding that as well. So happy that we had it, and we had a couple of members of the Board of Supervisors and the city manager was there as well. So we really appreciated that as well, and the show of support from that level too.
And just as a side note, the diesel tax bill is dead at this point.
This is what I get when I go away for a few days.
So
Thank you.
there may be a chance that it may get amended onto another bill somewhere, but at this point, that bill is dead.
Thank you for the clarification.
Did any of the commissioners have any questions for Patrick on the update? Nope. All right. Thank you, Patrick. We're moving on to item 4B, also for information only, to provide the RTC with information regarding access for construction and the need for future easements along Sierra Vista Lane as part of the Federal Lands Access Program grant project. And Dirk.
Thank you, sir.
This is yours.
So back in March, we received 30% design plans. Since then, we've met with the HOA out there at the end of Sierra Vista Lane. We've also met with the open space, received comments. Staff internally put comments together and sent them on. We are approaching 95, but we won't see complete 95% design plans until about August, maybe July if we're lucky. Now that we're confident on the limits of the roads and the limits of the drainage improvements, we're starting to work with private property owners to secure the access. There's about 9 property owners. There is existing access now. We have access easements in place. But for whatever reason, the easements don't always line up for where the road is. And the road is being constructed in the same location to minimize cost. So we're working with these private property owners, and for the most part, we've met with, I think, 7 out of the 9, and they are all excited and happy that this is happening, and let us know what you need. You want access to our property, you want to store equipment, everything. So they're very happy, which is all good news. There is one property owner that we are working with, and we are kind of working on exchanging some details just to kind of move the discussion forward. So in the future, you might see a combination of access mechanisms. One's going to be a permission to construct. In some cases, that's sufficient. In other instances, you might need an easement for the road. And originally, we thought we were going to do this after construction so that we could nail down exactly where the construction took place. But based on advice from our legal counsel and the fact that one of the properties is actually for sale, we thought it would be better to go through and get the easements now so that we don't have to worry about someone changing their mind or a property changing their mind afterwards. Additionally, since we all are confident in the limits of the road and the drainage improvements, we are very close to submitting an application to the BIA for the right-of-way application. There's about a once we submit it, there's about a 20 to 30 day return period that they need to return and answer the permit. So we're excited about that. We've hired a surveyor, and they've gone out and they're going to be producing the legal documentation and the map that we'll be using to submit the application. Stephanie Higgs is the real property manager for Carson City, and she is taking the lead on all the property, the right-of-way access matters. So she's in the audience. So both of us are happy to answer any questions, and that concludes my comments.
Are there any questions from the commissioners?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I guess just for an understanding of the project, and it's a right-of-way question, so why would we actually keep moving forward until we know we have the right-of-ways on the design? So just pretend somebody says, no, I'm not going to give you access or right-of-way. What happens?
Thank you. Stephanie Hicks, Real Property Manager, for the record. As Dirk indicated, we do have existing public right-of-way easements in place. The road, when it was constructed, has a few areas where it was constructed outside of that easement, but for all intensive purposes, I mean, the road's been there for a considerable amount of time. We have not had difficulty with the property owners. Everybody, with the exception of the one that we're just kind of working through some concerns with, has been very much in support of the project. And so we feel confident that doing this up front, ensuring that the right-of-way will be secured for where the road is constructed. And then also it's going to add some of the drainage improvements that are being proposed. So that is an element that it's incorporating that currently we don't have easements for. And that will allow us to secure those going into the future.
So just to clarify, though, we're going to get all of the easements that are necessary before we construct the road?
Correct.
Okay.
So are we looking at a construction start date in 2018?
Originally, we were hoping to get construction in 2017 in the fall, and design's kind of been taking a little bit longer than we anticipated, and we're pushing up against that construction date for the winter. Bad weather comes in, and we have construction in progress. The contractor's going to have to pull everyone out, and it starts raising the cost. And so it kind of was suggested by Central Federal Lands that we kind of just plan for a spring 2018 construction. But the plan is to go out to bid in 2017, December, secure contractor, and then be ready to go for spring 2018.
All right. Well, I apologize. I didn't open up public comment on the last item for traffic, so I'm going to open up public comment now for both items, this item and for the previous item, the traffic update. So, ma'am, go ahead and come up to the podium and please identify yourself for the record.
Hello, my name is Donna Gray. As far as the easements go, I'm not so concerned about the private property, but I am concerned about the private owners, but the BIA I am concerned about. We've been talking about this now for over a year, and I know you remain optimistic that the BIA is going to give its approval. For the commission, it's important because the BIA portion of this project is only about a third of a mile over a 2.5-mile project, but it's located in the middle of the 2.5 miles. So my question is that if we don't get the BIA approval, what's the plan B? I mean, is the remaining mile and a half after the BIA allotment not going to be finished, or what?
Right now, at this time, the reason why it's kind of difficult to go with Plan B is we don't know what BIA might say. They could. I don't know. I don't believe we'll just get an answer of no. I think they might have some comments that maybe we need to address and solve. But I mean, and I think it's important to note that BIA office. We've met with the BIA office from the beginning of application. The right-of-way officer has always been very helpful and cooperative and happy to help. And so I know it is a concern, and I respect that it's a valid concern. But at this time, there's been no reason to think that they're not going to approve it. And if they don't approve it, do you have to look at stopping the project? That would be one option, but do we want to look at that? No. I think we would start looking at other options. But I think at this time it's difficult to start scenario playing.
Well, and if I may, just to put a point out, the BIA has been very friendly.
Fair.
I mean, they have not given us any indication that they have any negative outlook on our activities.
So Dirk, are there any road encroachment easement adjustments that need to be made on that portion, or is it just the additional drainage improvement easements that you're talking to BIA about? Or both?
Both. There's some road matters.
Okay, so on the drain.
I'm sorry. It's not just that. It's not that the road is outside of the easement on BIA property. It's the fact that BIA does not recognize the historic easement. They don't recognize it. So under the way that they're looking at it, they're saying that they don't recognize any legal document, and that there's no access through BIA property. It's not a matter of alignment in this particular case. It's a matter of right-of-way.
So what you're attempting to do is to establish a brand-new right-of-way for the existing road bed and for drainage improvements.
That's correct. And when you said brand new, and it would be acknowledging the right-of-way, because this road has been there for some time.
But the easement hasn't. So
Correct.
when I say brand new, I'm talking about the easement, not
Correct.
the road.
Yes.
Well, isn't that interesting? So again, going back to your question, Donna, what happens if BIA just turns around and says, we're not going to recognize this? Does that mean they want the road torn up? Or does that mean that they're going to continue to allow access over their property?
And then, that's a good question. As you know, there's a subdivision past that. So it's not just a matter of the road at that point. It becomes a bigger issue. And so that's why it's kind of hard to come up with Plan B, because if they start saying that there is no access, a lot more folks are going to be involved in the matter. And so that's why it's difficult.
With all due respect, don't you think it's time to start thinking about it, though? I mean, we're talking about a start date in December.
Well, from what I understand, you're submitting the letter to BIA when? In the next few weeks?
Correct.
So we are starting that process.
Okay. And then there'll be 30 days after that.
Correct. And we've had to wait until we have had we felt confident on the alignment of the road and the type of improvements that are going to be needed.
And I would just like to add for the record, Stephanie Hicks, Real Property Manager. We've had several meetings with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Part of their process, we had to actually reach out to all of the allotment owners. So we have sent several letters to them in order to get their feedback and any concerns as to whether or not they disagree. So part of what we have to submit as the application was to be able to verify with the Bureau of Indian Affairs that the allotment owners are in support of the project. Based on the certified mailings that we've done so far and the responses that we've received, BIA is satisfied that the allotment owners are in agreement with this. again, until we have something in writing and finalized, we can't say that we for sure have the right-of-way. But as far as the requirements of notification to the property owners and also requests to them for approval of waiving just compensation and appraisal for the right-of-way, which is just part of the right-of-way process, we have received an adequate number of responses that BIA is satisfied that, number one, the allotment owners are in support, and secondly, that we're not required to do a just compensation at this point.
Just for the record, though, we do have a right-of-way. We have a legal right-of-way. I'm talking about now the association. The homeowners association has a right-of-way that was signed by a representative of the BIA, which is transferable, which we've offered to Carson City, and for some reason, it's not being recognized.
And that's the document that the current real estate officer at the Bureau of Indian Affairs has indicated to us they don't recognize.
Yeah.
And unless we got into something more legal in regards to that, we felt that this was the more amenable process, and they have been more than willing to work with us so far, so we just feel the best process at this point is to see that out.
So as long as they continue to be friendly and we come to an agreement, then all is good. If that ends up not being the case, then that's where we're going to have to start looking for alternative methods of getting through the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So I would say, from what I'm hearing, that we should have an answer in the next 60 to 70 days.
So, okay.
Well before we go out to bid or.
Right, but we can't bid until we
Right.
have a plan. I mean, then we need to start planning for a
Correct.
Plan B.
Right.
Okay. Well, as long as we're kept advised on, the progress, in which you've been very good about letting us know. Okay, I've got another point.
Go ahead.
Okay. It just should be noted, and I've already talked to Dirk about this, that the agreement, as it stands right now, terminates on January 20th, 2018. So it should be modified.
We usually modify it as we get towards the end of it.
Okay.
It's a pretty common occurrence.
Okay.
So we'll extend the contract accordingly.
And then the one other thing, and I just want to bring this up, is that only $100,000 has been budgeted by Carson City in this current budget year. And I just want to make sure that the remaining $139,000 will be budgeted in the next year.
Thank you. There's $100,000 budgeted last year, and then there's $100,000 budgeted this year. And so as we move forward, we'll make sure that we have enough. And the local match is approximately 236. 39. Thank you. So it is on the radar, and as we move forward with budget seasons, we'll make sure that's in the budget.
Okay.
So so the original 100,000, that's 16, 17, correct? And that money's already been spent. Then there's an additional 100,000 that's in the proposed 17, 18 budget that we are currently looking at, that the board is currently looking at for approval, and tentatively approved already.
Correct. So,
But we have not expended the $100,000 in the current fiscal year.
And so it should be. Yes. Thank you. And, yeah.
So I'm not understanding. So $100,000 was budgeted, it says, for the 16-17 expenditure year.
Okay.
So then there's still another 139 that has to be.
Correct, but we haven't received any invoices, so that's why the $100,000 from last year wasn't spent.
The original 100,000 is there and will roll over. There's another 100,000 that's in the budget that we've already tentatively approved for the next fiscal year. And then if there's any additional funds needed, then that would come up in the next fiscal year after that?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So the money will be there.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Right. But we don't want to get in a situation to where we approve all of this money in year one over a 3-year period,
And
because then
you're
that puts
holding
a
it.
hole in our budget.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay,
We're not doing other projects.
right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment at this time on this item or the previous item? All right, seeing none, that was an information-only item. So we are now on to item 4C, to update the RTC with information regarding the 2017-2018 capital projects, and this is also information only. Dirk?
Thank you, Chair. Back in February, we presented a list of capital projects for the 2017-2018 budget year for review. However, the winter has had a toll on our roads and has accelerated the decline of pavement. And so staff is looking at putting together a patching contract to take care of the deteriorating roads. So as a result, the plan is to pursue the mill and overlay contract for Airport Road at, maybe later in the future to free up money for that patching contract. So that's a change from February. Additionally, to stay within the budget constraints, we are changing 2 of the pavement preservation projects from a micro seal to a slurry seal. And as a reminder, there's a threshold for ADA improvements. Micro seal requires that you bring all the ramps up to ADA, and a slurry does not. And so in order to stay in budget, we're taking 2 of those projects that were going to be micro seals and changing them to slurry seals. And then slurry seals will be for Airport and 5th Street. So that concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So can you tell me, so what you're saying is you've changed the 2 projects to slurry seal because you want to use the dollars for some other project, but how much did you take from the airport and the 5th Street projects to convert them to slurry seal? How much money was that?
To put a point on it, we didn't actually take money away from those to move somewhere else. We converted them to slurry seals to keep them within the budget just to begin with, but also to avoid what would have been required Americans with Disabilities Act improvements.
I know, but I'm trying to ascertain what's the dollar
difference
for that?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, yeah, it was
quite a bit. I'm trying to come up with a number, but there's about, I want to say 8 or so ramps on 5th Street, and it's about $5,000 a ramp.
Well, yeah, but what's the difference between the micro surfacing and the slurry seal?
The difference is about 25% less. So from the micro seal cost going down to a slurry, you save about 25%.
But maybe the total dollar amount saved in the ballpark of $40,000 to $50,000 total for the 2. I mean, I don't have the number right in front of me, but just for a ballpark, where we are. But of course, there were multiple moving parts when you're looking at these projects, as far as sometimes the price goes up and down from the original estimate through when they go through design with the engineers.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, because my assumption is, again, that it's better to do the other project if we can find the dollars than versus doing the slurry seal. Because originally, both of those projects, right, we wanted to do micro seals. Yeah. And so I'm looking for you to give me the answer of how much money I need to find to put there.
Yeah, the answer, I mean, truthfully, the way this, and I'm going to cover this in the project update anyway, but the way this is working is that we have, we're about to have the contract for ADA work for one of the microsurfacing projects, the Coons project. That's going first. It needs to get done first. We have the slurry contract is out to bid right now, and we're confident we have the money for that. And the patching contract will go out to bid within the next week or so. And we're going to have to, basically, we're going to have to see how those are coming in, because there's a total of 4 contracts: the ADA, the slurry, the patching, and then the micro. And when we have all 3 of those, and that's when we'll really know if we have enough money actually to do the micro surfacing that we have scheduled here. I mean, there's a possibility that we won't have enough money to do the 4th part, but we think we're taking the right approach in that we'll be able to adjust as necessary. Hopefully we'll have enough money to do all of them, but we are that close that we're not 100% sure that we will.
So I appreciate what you're trying to say, and maybe I'm not being as clear as I would like to be. I'm looking to see if there's other dollars that I can move from somewhere else to accomplish the greater good for these streets. And so I was after is how much do I need? So are you saying, though, even if I were to find 50,000, so that, or let's say 100,000, that it's still, you're already going out to
Yeah.
bid to it, so
Well,
it's too
no.
late?
No, but even if the difference between the slurry seal and the microsurfacing was $50,000, it's not 50,000 you need to find. You need to find 50,000 for that difference, plus at least 100,000, probably in the order of 150, to do the ADA work that would be required if you were to find that 50,000 to do the microsurfacing. So, I mean, these are not exact numbers, but order of magnitude, you might need to find $150,000, $200,000 to do those. And having said that, while a microsurface is better than a slurry seal, we don't feel uncomfortable with a slurry seal. This is supposed to be a preservation. It's not a permanent fix, and it will absolutely extend the life of the pavement and improve the ride for our customers. So, no, it's not 100% of the way, but we're not uncomfortable with what we're moving forward with either. Does that not make sense?
So, right, so
When I extend it
what,
longer.
when the list of 9 projects was originally put together, what was that based on as far as the dollar amount that made us think that we could do all 9 projects, and what changed?
Well, and in our defense, we're still trying to pursue all 9 projects. What changed is that the original estimates were very, preliminary so that we could get a jump start on it. As we told you in the past, we didn't want to wait until June or July to get started. We wanted to start sooner and have the confidence of general support from the RTC on our plans. But they were based on very preliminary work by engineers who are very talented at what they're doing, but they were very preliminary estimates. And as they got into the projects in greater detail and went out with design staff and looked at what ADA requirements might be in great detail, the difference is that they had not inspected every ramp before we did the original estimate because it was more preliminary.
So I think where Lori is going with this is, do you have the ability to get bids for both the micro seal and the ADA and the slurry seal so that we know what the price for both projects is, so that if the Board of Supervisors, and I'm not speaking for them, I'm just coming up with this theory in my mind, were to come up with, say, $200,000 out of the general fund to give it to RTC to do these projects, we would be able to do that. Is that, okay?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible to do that. I mean, we do have a bid out for the slurries right now, but that doesn't mean that anything is in stone, and we could be, flexible as necessary and do as we are directed to do. Of course, we're here to serve. But like I said, we don't feel uncomfortable with the slurry seals that we're looking to do and to maintain the pavements.
So my hopefully last question then is, again, when we initially put together this list of 9 projects, there was a reason that we chose to look at doing the ADA improvements and a micro seal. Tell me if something has changed. I understand that we can accept the slurry seal and we still get benefit from that, but if you had your choice, which benefits the city more, doing the slurry seal or doing the micro and the ADA improvements?
Oh, yeah, no question. It would be preferable to do the micro surfacing. I mean, we are specifically aiming at arterial and collector streets, and it is a more significant improvement and justified by the category road.
Okay, so then, do we have the ability then to get bid numbers or some very tight numbers for both the slurry and the micro seal for those 2 projects?
Yeah, I believe that the engineer who's been working with us now for a couple of months on it, he already has a better idea, and that's why we were able to make these decisions, because he did have a better idea of not only what the cost of the slurry and microseal are, but also the ADA improvements. So yes, we could certainly get better numbers.
So I think the feeling that I'm getting here, and Jim has a question too here in a second, but I think what I'm hearing is that we'd like to have both of those numbers and be able to discuss those at maybe an upcoming meeting sooner rather than later, so that we could potentially make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to find funding to do the projects as originally intended. So at least I would throw that on the table for discussion with the other commissioners.
Just as a reminder, this is an informational item only, so I want to be careful about what we do as far as action. If you want to direct Patrick to take that direction and bring it back to a future agenda item, that's fine. I just wanted to remind everybody it's an informational item only that we're dealing with here.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, just for timing information, both the slurry and the patching contracts could be brought to this board in the July meeting for award. They're both scheduled to have bid openings next month. But for example, the bid opening for the slurry project is June 6th. That's not in time to bring it to the June meeting if we were to award it. But we could certainly discuss at the June 14th meeting at the pleasure of this board exactly, more information about where we're going.
I got to remember my question. Brad said he only had one more, but so I think I heard, I can't remember who said it, but I think I heard you say that on these ones that have been changed to the slurry, you have already started the tar patching on the cracks. Is that correct?
No, actually, yeah, you remind me, yes, please.
So we've been doing crack sealing we plan on doing crack sealing for all the pavement preservation projects, but we've made it high priority to do the ones for the slurry seal because the slurry contract was coming first. So those roads are getting crack sealed as fast as they can in anticipation for the slurry seal.
But I might add that we would do the crack filling before either. So if we just did a crack filling on Stewart Street, for example, whether or not that's a slurry or a micro, or same with Airport Road, we're still happy that we did the crack filling regardless.
And that was where I was going with this. Was that, necessary to do it's necessary for the slurry, but is it also a requirement for the micro?
Yes, absolutely. And yes.
I'm really enjoying this because being the member that I am, kind of at large with the community, there's no way I could talk about getting you any more money. So this is a really good discussion. So I guess it's directing staff to come back with bids for micro for those other projects just for information only. It's not actually an action item. It's directing staff. So I just love this process when there's a chance to change maybe to do what was proposed in the beginning. So I'm all for all this. It's exciting, and I look forward to the next meeting, actually.
I'm just sharpening my pencil on all my other tasks and duties, and so I just need to know what the sharpened pencil looks like to be able to have an opportunity for success.
Are there any additional questions from the commissioners? Is there any public comment on this item? All right, then thank all of you for that great discussion, and I'm sure that may come up again
Brad and I will see it again.
under item 5C.
At a different meeting.
At a different
No,
meeting,
at
too.
this meeting, under item 5C, it might just come up. So we're now on item 5, internal communications and administrative matters, non-action items. First up is 5A, street operations activity report.
Okay, as usual, I'm not going to cover every line of this. I was actually already going to mention that we've completed the crack filling on Carson River Road, Stewart Street, and I think we're working on Airport Road. And yes, we have been filling potholes as well. I want to, of course, everybody knows there's been a lot of stormwater activities as that has gone along. Hopefully you've seen our striping crews out there doing, I saw them on 5th Street today between Stewart and Carson. Everyone please drive carefully through there. And then finally, and they're doing a wonderful job, but I want to give a shout out to a crew that I've said good things about in the past, but I want to reiterate again. The concrete repair and maintenance crew is three gentlemen who work hard like a lot of public works employees do, but they're out there doing yeoman's work every day. And just this week, they poured concrete near a home, and unfortunately, we have many areas that don't have sidewalks and a lot of needs in this town. But there was a home that actually had a disabled person living there, and they got there very quickly and did a wonderful job. And actually, the parent of the disabled individual, personally contacted me to say how happy she was that this was really going to, make a difference in someone's life. And we're really happy that when we have a chance to do that here at Public Works. So, with your permission, I'll move on to 5B.
Any questions on 5A? Moving on.
Okay, thank you. The Blue Line 88 sidewalk improvements. Those of us who were on the local celebrity bike ride went right by Phillip Street, where there was a big hole in the ground. Doing some concrete work on the Blue Line prior to the grinding off and restriping the Blue Line. That's a wonderful thing. Our staff continues to move forward through the NDOT process to get that free of multi-use path and also the mill and overlay on Airport Road out this year. Sierra Vista Lane, I think we've heard enough about that already. Now, wonderful thing that we already got an update on. Sonoma Street reconstruction, I know that they are in the final stages of adjusting the, basically the manhole covers, raising the iron out there. So that's wonderful. They ended up doing a little more concrete work than they expected, but it went very well out there. And I did see that one going on, and they did a good job of, even when there was just dirt on the ground, at 5:30 at night, that road was open for people to come home. And yes, they were driving on dirt, but I think it went well. Silver Stage Drive, the design has begun on that. That's that Federal Surface Transportation Block Group funds. And then we have, I'm not going to go over all of these various different slurry and micro seal projects, which we already just discussed. The citywide patching project, that is moving forward. They're just finishing up the proposed areas to address. And I just want to note with that one, one of the challenges that's faced by our engineer, I'll just say his name because he's a good guy and a good engineer, Brian Elder, is that there are a lot of roads that are in poor condition that you'd like to improve, but not all of them have as an appropriate measure the patching. Sometimes you look at a road and say, boy, that's a bad road, needs some work, but you look at it and say, yeah, but it's not one that, you can just patch one little spot, it's the whole road. So that's one of the challenges that we face, actually. You want to find something that's appropriate for that type of improvement. The long line striping, that is going to be, I think, coming to the next meeting for award. That's a very important project every year in combination with the crosswalk striping done by city staff. The Northridge Drive roundabout, we had hoped to start this week, but now we're going to start next week, Monday. The only issue there was that we wanted to make sure that we were really sure of the traffic control plan, because there will absolutely be an impact to traffic while they're building that roundabout at Northridge and Ridgecrest. And the Community Development Block Grant, North Carson Street Improvement Project. The engineer on that one said he's about to start on the design on that one as well. And I made sure that he knew to call Jim Peckham to coordinate. Jim's already left me a message, make sure we didn't forget him, and we certainly did not. To point out the battery backup improvements, we wanted to put that in there because that's something that actually James Jacklett is taking the lead on, working with the Nevada Department of Transportation. There is an agreement pending. A lot of people don't know this, but most of the traffic signals in the city do not have a battery backup system. Some of the newer ones do, like the College Research one. Of course, when we built that, we did include a battery backup system. But Nevada Department of Transportation is working with staff, including James, to provide us with the funds to put battery backups into these key intersections here in town. And we really look forward to that, because right now, if something happens and you lose a signal, it's just dark. And it'll be wonderful to have battery backup there, because now, if you want to get that signal back up and running in the interim, you have to get a generator on it, which is something we have done in the past. Did that in the fire down by the Stewart Indian community last year. South Carson Street Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvement Project, we're going to be bringing a recommendation to you next month on that. Dirk recently received the revised copy of the report, and he's going through that, and we're going to go over it with our boss, Darren, tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And we are just now, and we don't even have the agreement yet on this last one, but we're working on the agreement to get the next stage of the freeway multi-use path underway. And it's going to be a long process. We don't have the agreement yet, but very much looking forward to taking that next step as well. And the only other thing I'll mention as far as projects, it's not our project, so it's not on the list, but the Nevada Department of Transportation and their contractor is still making tremendous progress on the Carson City Freeway, Phase 2B-3, and they are continuing discussions with us and Muscle Power and the Sheriff's Office on an event. I'm not sure the final name of it, but they're working on an event that'll allow folks to walk and run and ride their bike on the freeway shortly before it opens later this summer. So we look forward to working with them on that. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Patrick, on the patching project, does that also include filling potholes, or is it just patching, meaning that they're going to cut and patch?
Yeah, it's not a pothole specific one. It's more what you're discussing. It's a patching, and the discussions you have are you doing a full lane width, or are you doing, sometimes we do a wheel path where you just have one wheel path that's determined, or there might be a case where you might do the full width of a road for 40 feet. It depends on the area, but yes, we're focusing on patches of that nature.
Any additional questions on the report? Okay. All right, we are on to item 5C, future agenda items. Patrick?
Okay, well, things I just mentioned, the South Carson Street study, which was done, by CAMPO for Carson City, long line striping contract. We haven't forgotten about a previous request to come back with an update on how we're doing with state Medicaid, DHCFP, the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. There you go. See if I can get that right. So we haven't forgotten that we're going to do that. We just wanted to get a little more information so we come back to you and report. I just want to reassure you that we will be doing that. And then we can come back and talk to you more about our projects as well, the slurry and micro projects.
Great, since this is the appropriate place on the agenda to talk about that. So, great. Do any of the commissioners have any future agenda items? All right. Then we are on to item 6, board comments. Status reports or comments from members of the RTC board. Mr. Smolinski.
I'm fine.
Nope. Mr. Kimbrough.
I've had my say.
No. All right. We have no reports from board members. Final chance for public comment. If anybody would like to come up. I see nobody approaching the podium, so we're on to item 8 on the agenda for possible adjournment. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
We are dismissed. Thank you all.